#1 resource for leadership development in Texas. As the founder of the Women's Leadership Advisory Board, Jill Hickman specifically focuses her time and energy to inspire, educate, and elevate women to leadership success. Running a business and managing to have a personal life in the process isn't always easy for women. So Jill dedicates a significant amount of resources each year to provide women with the knowledge, skills, and support to make work and life blend more successfully. With monthly meetings of guest speakers on business building topics, mastermind meetings to brainstorm solutions to business challenges, exclusive retreats, and individual coaching to ensure accountability and progress, Jill provides the members of the Women's Leadership Advisory Board with strategic business vision, tactical action steps, and the support of a trusted advisor. Commitment to community and continuous education, such as participation in workshops like today, is a critical part of Jill's success. After graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from UT, Jill earned a Master's in Human Resources Management from University of Houston Clear Lake, while working full-time and raising a family. She knows what it's like to have a full and busy life, and yet she continues to give back to the community with active involvement in professional and service organizations, including serving as board president of the American Society of Training and Development Houston chapter in 2002, board president of the Institute of Management Consultants USA Houston chapter in 2009, and facilitating leadership workshops within the WBEA and Dress for Success Houston. Please help me welcome Jill Hickman as she prepares you for success.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, welcome. How many of you have been here all day? All right. And you stuck around for me? Well, what is that, right? It's late in the afternoon. You've been waiting for me. Oh, that's nice. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we stand up for just a minute? All right, because I know some of you were in the last session and you didn't leave. See, I do look around. I observe. All right, so we're going to do a few stretches because I think I need it, and it sounds like and it looks like you might need it too, right? So let's do this. Let's just stick our hands out in front, stretch them as far as you can. Okay, stretch further, further. You can do it. All right, now just let it go. All right, now imagine that you've got this pole between your arms that you're hanging onto, and stretch your arms back as far as you can, right? One of the things I learned from a voice coach is that we carry a lot of our stress through here and across here. Do you agree? Yes. Yeah, okay. I can't help you with it. Just thought I'd point it out for you. All right. That's all right. Periodically through the day, just remember that we do carry most of our stress here and across our back. So just remember, stand up, stretch, and really try to work that out because it doesn't do you any good at all. I see a lot of familiar faces. I'm glad to be here at WBEA, and this is a new day in WBEA. Do you realize that? It's a different conference. It's a different way of doing things, and I'm excited to be part of that. But today we're here to talk about working on your business versus working in your business. What do you think that means? What does it mean to you? Is it wrong to work in your business?
You can't do anything else.
Who?
Can't get anything else done.
Can't get anything else done if you're working in your business. What do you mean you can't get anything? I feel like I'm working all the time when I'm in my business.
You can't grow your business when you're working in details.
Oh, okay. So when I'm working in it every day, all day long, if that's all I do, then I'm really not going to be able to grow. How is that possible? That almost seems like a contradiction. How many of you feel like you are working so hard? Right? Raise your hands, toot your own horn. I know you are. You're working so hard, but yet if that's all we do is look at what's just around us without taking time to look at what's down the road, we could really be missing out on what you just said. Not growing, staying where we are. How important is it to grow? How important is it to grow?
If you don't grow, you die.
Yeah, absolutely. There are many companies that we know who didn't do that. They were real busy, but they did not survive. Can you name any of those? household names that used to be just 20 years ago. Does anybody remember Montgomery Ward's? Okay, doesn't make me feel quite as old when you do that. Yes, okay. And what? Sanger Harris. All right, another one. Any others? Blockbuster, still hanging on. I see their boxes at the grocery store, but that's all I see. What are the businesses that are just barely hanging on? Those 7-Eleven. What else? Sears, barely hanging on, right? And then those that almost died but reinvented themselves. Apple. And what else? Compaq. Kodak. Yeah, I was going to say, wait a minute, I think you lost that one. All right, so that was on that last conversation. Harley Davidson almost died, came back with a vengeance. So one of the things that we're looking at is, what is the difference to you? What difference does it make? Well, looking at all those examples that you just identified, it makes a huge difference. Now, granted, most of us aren't those mega dollar companies like Kodak or Harley Davidson, but the principle still stays the same. If we're not looking at what we can do better, faster, smarter, cheaper, and that means we've got to be thinking ahead and get out of the trenches from time to time, right? From time to time. So what are we going to do here? Well, we're going to get rid of this warning sign, number one. Warning, warning. Yeah. Let's get rid of that. Technology is our friend. So let's think about what we're going to do. In this program today, these are the different things that I hope that you leave here with. And what you're going to leave here with is, what is the meaning of business wisdom? And what difference does that make for your company? And really knowing what's the trap of doing everything and getting nothing in return. There are good days and bad days for business, right? And then looking at the different roles and responsibilities that you have in your business and looking at how can you manage those more successfully and with confidence. And specifically, we're going to look at the power of really taking those timeouts, getting out of the trenches, looking ahead for your business with strategic planning. And usually the thought of strategic planning just sends groans through a room. Yeah, it's like pulling your teeth out, right? It's a tough, strenuous process. I'm here to make it a little bit more fun. And one of the ways that I like to make it a bit more fun is to use really big charts. So if you are in a business that does strategic planning with more than just yourself, this is a great tool to use. So here's the first resource for you. The first resource is that these charts are not charts that I created. There is a company called Grove.com. Grove Graphics designs and prints and sells these to you for your business. They also make them in smaller versions. So if you do strategic planning by yourself as a one-shop operator, then you don't have to have the wall chart. You can have a small personal version. So one of the things that you'll have today when you leave is a set of tools and templates for your own strategic planning. And the way that you'll get that is that you can give us your card and we'll send you this PowerPoint presentation, which will also have the graphics for you, okay? All right, save you a bunch of money just by being in this workshop. The other thing is that one of the wishes that I have for you is that when you leave here, you will give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to take time out of your business, because that's one of the biggest barriers to entrepreneurs, is how do I find the time? It's not that the time doesn't exist. We just don't give ourselves permission to take it. So we're going to talk about the importance of taking time out, particularly important for women. Not to slight the guys, but even more so for women. So what's the definition of business wisdom? When we look at the word knowledge, you know, people can go to school and get tons of degrees. And believe me, I love education. There's nothing wrong and nothing better than getting an education. But you can have a string of degrees, and that means absolutely nothing unless what? You do something with it. You apply it. That's the key. When we look at business wisdom, it is the application of what you learn. That's what business wisdom is. It's not how much you know. It's what do you do with what you've learned, what you've gained from your experience. I had the opportunity to work with a man who was the co-founder of a national company founded here in Houston that served only small businesses. And he said literally it was like a lab experiment. He said we had the privilege of watching these companies grow. This is really uncomfortable. I'm really trying to work here. I'm just teasing you, I'm just teasing you. But anyway, he had the privilege of being able to watch these small businesses look at how they grew over a 3-year period, 5-year period, 10-year period, 15-year period. And he also got to see what caused them to have a stunted growth, if you will, and also what caused them to fail. And so much so that what he said is that when he looked at these small businesses, he said, I can tell you what happened is that they spent too much time working in their business, the ones that failed, the ones that had stunted growth, too much time with their hands in the business instead of their head on the business. And he said, that's business wisdom. It's spending the time to think about what you're doing and using your head instead of using your hands. Now, as an entrepreneur, if you're that one-stop shop, your hands are going everywhere, aren't they? From one role to the next. And what's interesting is that we look at this challenge for us. We are involved in so many different responsibilities, from research and development to sales to marketing to admin to the invoicing, you name it, customer service. We're all over the board. The danger is if we're all over the board doing everything, what are we really doing to grow our business if our hands are in the business and not our head on the business? It's interesting when we start thinking about, particularly for us as children, not just little girls, but anyone as a small child, you are taught that you can be anything that you want to be, right? This day and age, anybody can be anything. Unfortunately for women, we got the message mixed up a bit. Instead of hearing, we can be anything we want to be, we heard the message, we can do everything. I see a lot of heads nodding. Yeah. What's the problem with doing everything?
You don't get any sleep.
Yep, that's part of it. If you don't get any sleep, you're sacrificing yourself because you're doing all these different roles and responsibilities. What time do you have left for yourself? None. It's a scary proposition. If you have nothing left over, what can you imagine is going to happen to your business? If you're in a mode of doing everything just to get the jobs done, how are you going to be able to grow your business? Are you just surviving to get those jobs done, or are you thriving? Big difference, right? For those of you who were here and heard Mike Lejeune, you heard him talk about the difference of having a job doing task and having passion. We talked about those people who were able to do things because they wanted to do it, because they had the passion, the heart, and the level of performance that resulted. If you're doing things because you just have to get them done, that becomes not what you got into business to do in the first place, right? You got into business because you love what you do. Raise your hand if that's true. You got into business to do what you love. You're in the job, hopefully. You're in the job if you work for a corporation. As one of our WBE sponsors, raise your hand if you're our WBE sponsor. Yay, thank you very much for being here. One of the things that you did is that you took this job because it was something that you really felt strongly about. But what happens is that if we get into these roles and responsibilities and fragment ourselves, and we find that we are just barely surviving and not thriving, our passion, what do you think happens? It dies. It dies. What good does that do for our business? All right, this is a very depressing topic. I can just see it on your faces. Man, she's driven that point home. Let's get off that dead horse, because it is. It's really sad, right? So what do? If this is where we are and we're trying to do everything, then obviously things have to change, because you've told me that I can't grow my business if I continue to be everything and do nothing, get nothing in return. Interesting side note, it's really related. I went to Kima the other day. Do you recognize this? It's the boardwalk, right? What is the boardwalk now? What is Kima? What have they built it to be? It's not just the place you go to eat at a seafood restaurant. What is it? It's a destination. What do you go there for? Fun. What else? Music. To that restaurant. It's entertainment. Have any of you ever ridden that little railroad that goes around? I did that for the first time the other day. It was so much fun. I just, on a whim, decided I would do that. But I got on that train, and I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it's almost like Disney. If you haven't done it, it's almost like Disney. It doesn't look like it from the outside. It's one of those sleeper surprises. It's kind of cool. So I'm not giving away the surprise. But when I did that, it was like putting me in a whole different mindset. And when I was walking around, I saw that there was this tree. Now, that's not a very pretty picture, but it's one I took. That's the kind of pictures I take. That's why you don't see me in any kind of magazine, right? Now, this tree, if I could zoom in on it, has some pink blossoms. Do you see it? It's really hard to see, but there are some pink blossoms up there, really long. Now, I'm a gardener. Is anybody here a gardener? Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Me either. I had never seen this tree before, and I love to garden. It's pink. It's not purple, because you're thinking it's a vitex, aren't you? See, gardeners talk. Yeah, it looks like a vitex tree, which has purple blooms. So my curiosity was really piqued. Of course, I've just gotten off the railroad, so I'm in a pretty good, talkative kind of mood. I'm really enjoying the atmosphere. I'm having a great time. And I see the gardener out there. And I'm thinking, from one gardener to another, he'll just chat me up about what this tree is. Now, wouldn't you have done that? Absolutely. You want that tree in your yard because it's different. So I walked up to the gardener. Notice I did not have his picture up here. And the reason why is because when I walked up to him and asked that question, what kind of tree is this? It is gorgeous. It's beautiful. He looked at me like I had 3 heads. 3 heads. And it wasn't because he didn't understand me. It was like, what are you asking me that for? Right then and there, before he even answered, and guess what his answer was? You can guess. I don't know. He might have said, I don't care. He might have as well have said that. Because as soon as he looked at me, I knew he wasn't there for this. What was he there for? It was a paycheck. It was a job. It was one of those people that Mike was talking about earlier that shouldn't have been hired, because he truly did not get that this is what he was there for. He was there not to trim the tree. What was he there for? What is his job, really? Adding beauty, adding to the entertainment factor, to engage, to connect. Totally didn't get it. And for me, it was like, wow, another example of someone who has no passion for their job. And another reminder for me how critical it is for me to have passion. For me to be able to take time out of my job to ride a train every now and then so that I can recognize when somebody doesn't have it. Do you think people can tell if you love what you do? Can they tell the difference between something that is compliance and something that's commitment? Something you do because you have to do it, you're surviving, or because you are just on fire and thriving and you love what you do? That's what you're in business for. And if you're not, we really need to think about what can you do to get that back? What can you do to get that back? That's the most important thing for you to leave here today thinking. If I don't have that, if my employees don't have that, what can I do to get that back? Because like Mike was telling you, once you lose that engagement, how difficult is it to get it back? Difficult. So, depressing topic, even more depressing picture. But the point is that if you don't know, if you are so focused on everything and not doing anything to look at your business from a visionary perspective, you could end up anywhere. You could be going in all the wrong directions instead of going where your heart and where your head's telling you need to go. Big difference. So what do we do to get off that roller coaster of all those responsibilities and doing everything instead of doing the things that we know will thrive and make our business grow? Well, the very first thing, there is hope. I love that Mike is a preacher of hope. There is hope, but the first thing that you have to do, and this is a have to. I'm not a believer in have tos, but this is a have to. What do you think the green light is?
Giving you permission to go.
Thank you very much. If I had $1 million, I'd give it to you, because that is the right answer, but I don't, sorry. Okay, just to make that clear, right? So the key is that it's about giving yourself permission. And we get caught up in all the things that we have to do, and we're thinking there's not enough time left for me to do the things that I know I need to do, but I've got so many roles and responsibilities, I really have to do those. Well, I'm here to tell you, you need to stop, because nobody's going to give you permission. Nobody's going to give you permission but yourself. You've got to give yourself permission. Give yourself the green light to say, okay, this is what I will do. I will work X number of hours. I will work as hard as I can toward this project, but by golly, I'm going to take this time off for me and either recover, re-energize, or plan what needs to happen next. That's key. There's a great book. I am a great believer in books. And the reason why is that not only does it give you more money, in fact, there's a statistic, I'll say it in a minute, a statistic that says people who read earn 2 to 3 times more than those who don't. So here's your paycheck, right? Here's another paycheck for you. I'm giving you a book. Here's the book to read. It's one of the best books I have read in about 20 years. And I read about 20 books a year. And you can too. If you only read 10 pages a day, you'll have read at least 20 books a year. Not a day, a year. All right, so here's the name of the book. The Power of Full Engagement. Has anyone heard of it? The ladies in the lab have, yes. The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Lohr, L-O-E-H-R. And what he talks about in this book is how important it is for us to give ourselves time. We can go full throttle, but we need to back off. Because if we go full throttle, just like any machine, if you own a manufacturing site, if you keep a machine at full throttle, full speed, 24 hours, all the time, every day, what happens to that machine?
It breaks down.
Breaks down. In fact, plants in the Houston area, manufacturing chemical plants, petrochemical plants, have what they called designated times for shutdowns, where they do nothing but repair, re-energize, and really look at giving those machines some tender, loving care. We do it with machines, but we don't do it for ourselves. And I'm telling you, if we don't, we're not going to have the energy to go and do the things that we really need to do to grow our business. So read the book, really keep it, It is an awesome book because I wish I had written it. I wish I got a percentage because I talk about it all the time. It has examples and exercises in the back for you to really follow through with. So giving yourself a green light to go. It's a green light to go and take time out so you can re-energize, and how you use that time to re-energize and think. For those of you who have a hobby like gardening, one of the things that you'll find is that when you are playing out of work, right? You're not concentrating on work, you're really engaged in your hobby. What do you find happen? I keep going back to my gardener over here. What happens when you're in your Zen zone?
You have all these wonderful, great new, why didn't I think of that before, ideas.
It's like you hit the easy button. You know, we are struggling at the point sometimes of diminishing returns. We just keep going at it, keep going at it. We think we'll just keep stretching it out, when if we just stopped and played, whatever play means to you. If it means reading a book, if it means going to the beach, if it means swimming in your swimming pool, if it means gardening. It's about taking time, and when you do, the ideas just come out like crazy. Isn't it amazing how that happens? Yet if you were still at your office and your desk trying to plug away, you're shaking your head. You know you're not getting anywhere, right? So just stop, go play, and look at those ideas that just keep popping up. So absolutely, what do we need to do to take time out? I want to give you some steps because I did promise you that you would leave here with some tools and some tips and some templates for when you take time out of your business. Taking time out to plan, taking time out to re-energize is important too. Just like the shutdowns in plants. This is a shutdown time for you to think about what needs to happen next. How am I going to grow my business? I'm getting out of the weeds and out of the trenches and thinking about what do I need to do to thrive. The first step is to have a clear vision of where you want to go. If you don't know what direction you're headed, you could be like the blips on the radar screen and just keep going round and round and round, not getting anywhere. You're doing a whole lot of stuff, but you're not going anywhere in any consistent pattern. So having a clear vision, and here's what I suggest. One of the other Grove templates that you're going to get from me in the email is this one. This one is called a cover story vision. And what this is to imagine, so close your eyes, this is your opportunity to take a little meditative trance here. I'm going to wake you up though, sorry. All right, so what I want you to do is sit back in your chairs. All right, let go of your pen. Take a deep breath. Oh, you're already smiling. I love to do this exercise. Close your eyes. All right, now I want you to imagine it's 5 years from today, and you have achieved great success. In fact, the success is so phenomenal that the reporter, the journalist, from your most favorite business rag, whether it's Time, Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report, your industry trade magazine, whatever that is, the editor has called and said, we are sending a journalist, a reporter, and a photographer to you. We want to chronicle what you've done because other people need to know. When that reporter and that photographer come, keep your eyes closed. I want you to see it. I want you to feel it. Where are you going to take them to see the results of what you've done? Who are you going to introduce them to? And once you introduce them to those people who have experienced the product, the service, whatever it is your business has created, what are those people going to say? What are they talking about when they talk about you and your company and its products and its services? And when you open up that magazine when they tell you that it's ready, before you even open up the magazine to the article, to your surprise, you're on the cover. You are on the cover of that magazine. What is the headline that's on that magazine cover? What's the picture? And you open up the magazine to that article, and you see those photographs that they've taken. You see the quotes from the people that they've interviewed. And you see the results and the impact that it's had. Before you open your eyes, let me ask you, how does it feel in this moment right now to think about that success? How would you describe it with one word? Euphoric. How else would you describe it? Energizing. All right, I'm going to have to wake you up out of your Zen zone because you're so there. I can see your faces. You're so far away. You are there. And the smiles, I love to do this because I can just see your bodies relax. You know, how often do you relax during the day? Your whole bodies were so relaxed. Your faces and your jaws loosened. Your eyes, I could see them moving. And guess what was happening with your mouth? A big smile. A big smile. So what is that telling you? What does it look like? You said euphoric. You said energizing. How long did that take? About 2 minutes. 2 minutes to energize you. Not even 2 minutes. Probably about a minute. 2 minutes to energize you and to think about the possibilities and the hope that you can achieve that success in 5 years or 3 years. But the point is that you really have to see it first. There's a lot of psychology that says you have to see it here first before you can believe it, to where your body will make it true, to where your behavior will take those actions from what they've seen and put it into reality. In fact, so much so about the psychology of the mind and what the mind has to see and believe first before it happens, is that if you think about the major sports players, the major athletes, and I am not a sports aficionado, but I am a psychological aficionado. And the things that I have read about what Tiger Woods, about you name it, the top athletes in any field, they spend more time visualizing their success, seeing that hole-in-one, seeing that smashing serve, seeing, you know, what that pass completed on the football field, more time visualizing that than they even do out on the field. Those top performers, like Mike was talking about earlier, when they have a bad season, it's not because they don't have the skill. There's something else going on. They've lost the confidence, they've lost the faith, and the belief in themselves. It's about working here to make it come out here. So taking time for yourself and visualizing your success is absolutely number one. There's another easier tool instead of going through, and this is actually the visualization, if you will, for the cover story of the magazine. But there's another process that you can take too. And this one is more artsy, if you will. This one's more tactical. This is creating a vision board of your success. It means just get poster boards like you see these ladies here. Getting poster boards and getting magazines and cutting out pictures and words and creating a visualization of what your success looks like. And hanging that up where you can see it every single day. How many of you have created a vision board? Okay, if you're not, don't really want to share it with anybody, go like this. One of the things that I have on my website is vision board techniques, how to actually create a vision board. So please go to that and you'll see that resource is there for you. Vision boards absolutely are very powerful. One of the things I first told somebody when I was talking about vision boards and about how successful it is, be very careful what you put on there. Be very careful because you see it every day. You'll keep it in a place where you see it every day. It will show up. It will show up in your life. I didn't even know what a vision board was, but in high school I fell in love with my now husband of 33 years. Fell in love with him in high school, and I said, I am going to be Jill Hickman. That was not my last name then. But I had a poster board that I did Jill Hickman, Jill Hickman, Jill Hickman, Jill Hickman. Put it all over my room. I wish I still had it. Became Jill Hickman. So I say be careful what you want. I love my husband. I'm glad that he is my husband and I have that name. But it does come true. It does come true. If you believe it, you want it, you'll make it happen. Step number 2 is to identify what your values are. Once you start heading into a direction, if you don't know what your values are, you cannot make decisions that will keep you on course. One decision off center, off your true north, will send you down that very slippery slope to the point where you wake up one day and you go, how do I get here? How did I get here? In fact, we were talking about that during Mike's presentation back at this table. And we were saying that it's those small decisions. It's not the big things that happen like you see in the papers with Bernie Madoff and with Enron. It's not those decisions that are the ones that we're talking about. We're talking about the small decisions where you compromise your values. Because your values come into conflict, can come into conflict all the time. And if you don't know what your values are, you don't know where the priorities are, it is easy to make a mistake that you'll regret. And it's one small decision that slips you over one shade off center. Thinking about what your values are, and I love this example, and this is when we first were going to put a man on the moon, right? The priorities for putting a man on the moon, we wanted to do it safely, but what was our other value? It wasn't just about safety. What else was it?
First.
Being first, right? All right, so being first in exploration. Now, if you look at those values that we had as a country, which one was the priority? First. Being first. Because if it was safety, we would have never sent anybody up in a rocket ship. True? So is it an important thing to do? Identifying your values, absolutely. You must know where they are because decisions will come up. And if you don't know where you stand, then you can easily take a decision that takes you off course. So to help you with this, there's an exercise that I want to give you time to think about today. And I believe, Kira, are you nearby? Oh, everybody's got one. Perfect. Thank you. All right, what I'd like you to do, this is an excerpt from, and I pointed out Kira. Kira and I created this journal. I'm a firm believer in journaling because it identifies patterns. It also helps develop optimism. On those rough days where you feel like you have not been who you wanted to be, you've been doing everything instead of focusing on the things you need to, journaling is really important. But the exercise that comes from this journal is the one that I want to share with you today. And the reason I want to do it in this program today is because you're going to get a bonus. Because this is in the journal, but this exercise that I'm sharing with you is not. All right? So you get the double bonus here. So what I want you to do is that if you'll look on the page preceding what Kara calls the spidergram, Kara did all the graphics and did a beautiful job. Thank you, Kara. Turn to the page before that lists the different values. That is not a complete set of values. In fact, if you Google values, you'll see pages and pages and pages of values. So this is a starter set, if you will. What I'd like you to do is to think about what is important for you. How do you base your decisions? So what are the values that you have? And what I'd like you to do is just to put a check mark down that list. If these apply to you, which of these on this page are your values? And if yours aren't listed, then write yours in. But just spend this moment right now, this is a timeout for you, to think about what your values are. Okay, here's a side note for you. We've talked about the importance of identifying your own values. But from a business standpoint, how are values important in your business? To communicate, to identify and communicate your values. How important is that? It's huge, but how is it important? How does that serve you in your business? In what ways?
You surround yourself with people with those same types of values.
Absolutely. You start attracting people who look at what your value set is. You know, when Mike was talking about recruiting and selection, these are decisions that we live by. These are the values that we live by. And if we're communicating that out to the world, there are going to be those people who will look at that value set and say, yes, I want to work for that kind of person. I want to work for that kind of company. And when we start looking at the free-for-all that's going to happen with recruitment, that Mike was talking about, Ben Metter. By the way, I know Ben, that's so interesting. And by the way, I also heard, this is completely off subject, your dad was a fast-pitch softball player. So was mine. We have to talk. I bet they knew each other. Okay, so when we look at how important it is for you to identify and communicate your values for your own personal decisions, it's also important for the people that you're trying to attract, your employees, but also your customers. Customers today are very savvy, and they're also very cautious about where they're going to spend their dollar. In the recession, they were really cautious. They want to make sure, recession or not, that where they're spending their dollar is with a company that this dollar is going to do more than just buy me that good or service. This is a dollar that I know contributes to the better good of the community, better good of the country, better good of the world. In fact, one of the things that was so important for me when we were building and creating this journal is that it could have been cheaper for me, a lot cheaper, to have created this outside the country. And I said, no. This is going to be built, made, created by only women and only women in the USA. And in fact, it turned out it was women in Texas. Even better, right? So what are your values? What are you attracting? So going back to this exercise, now that you have identified, and this is a homework assignment, right? This is something for you to really spend time in your time out and identifying what's important. And let me ask you, do you think your values change? Yes, they do. The values from, if you look at it from when you started out as a child to when you start nearing retirement and when you are nearing, you know, from cradle to grave, your values change. From teenagers, you know, they think that they are completely you know, alienated from any harm, right? They take risks that nobody would even consider about. When you get to the point where you're a senior and elderly, you're just hoping that you wake up with everything still working, right? So your values change. It's about health when you're older, and it's about having fun when you're the teenager. Hopefully having fun lasts all the time, right? But your values will change. So when I say look at your values, absolutely look at your values on a regular basis. As your life reaches different stages, ask yourself what's important now. And so when you look at this spider graph, when you look at this wheel, the next step in this exercise is for you to take those values, and I've narrowed those down to 8. I really would like you to narrow those down. You could have a lot of values, but I want you to look at what are the top 8 and to place them in the white space. So for each ray, if you look at the screen, for each ray coming out from that circle, from that inner circle, and that white space, each one of those rays will be identified by one of your values. So go ahead and do that now, because when you leave here, you won't know what that thing was for, unless you buy the journal, which we have for sale today. Shameless plug. So you've got your values written around the outside of that wheel. If you notice, there are numbers there. From the center, which is 1, to the outside of that circle, which is 5. What I'm asking you to identify is looking at that value. For each one of those values, to assess a number of it, a number in terms of not just how important this is to you, but this is looking at the value that you're currently exhibiting. How much time are you spending on this value right now? 1 being the least amount of time, 5 being the greatest amount of time. And if you've ever read the book by Stephen Covey, he said, I can tell you what somebody's values are. And he said, you look at their calendar and you look at their checkbook. Yep. Where are you spending your time and your dollars? I'm just asking you about your time. So right now, for each one of those values, identify what is the amount of time, with 1 being the minimum, 5 being the greatest. And circle in that particular number on each of those different values. Now, I'm not going to ask you to share it. This is strictly for your eyes only. Now, this is the exercise that's in the journal. This next piece is not. But here you go. Once you've identified how much time that you're currently spending on each of those values in terms of demonstrating, can you tell what somebody's value is? One of mine is giving back to the community, right? Philanthropy. What am I doing today? I'm here at the WBEA. We didn't get paid a whole lot, did we? We are here because we want to. I'm here because I love what I do. I love my Houston community, and I want to share this with you. You can see people demonstrate their values every day. So I'm asking you to be honest with yourself. Where are you spending your time in each of those values? Now, here's the second part. And this is really important. Looking at where, once you dot in all those circles, color in all those circles, and you can create a diagram that connects the dots. So go ahead and connect the dots. This is still part of the exercise in the book. What do you notice about that circle? When you connect those dots, what do you notice? If you haven't done it yet, you might find pretty lopsided, all right? Pretty lopsided. So what it's telling you is that there are things that you say are important, but you're not spending the time. Are we trying to get you to have a full circle? No, but what I am trying to get you to think about is that really how you want it to look. Because if you say that family's important, but you're spending 1% of the time there, how important is it really? What can you do to make a difference? Here's the part I want you to think about next. That is not in the book, not in the journal. The next step is that on each one of these different rays, think about if you are not satisfied with where that number is now, where do you want it to be? If it's at a 1 now and you want that to be a 5, then color in the 5. If you want it to be, if it is a 5 now and you want it to be a 3, you're spending way too much time doing one of those things. Then what you'll find is that there is a gap that you've created between the circle of what you're doing now and the circle of what you want to do, be, or have. And that gap is what creates stress for us. And by looking at that gap, it is asking you to think about, what can I do differently? And once you identify where that gap is, that gives you a whole new set of directions for what you need to do to make that gap go away. Sometimes it's being courageous to say no. Sometimes it's being courageous to say yes. So which one is it? And what are the steps that you need to take? Once you've decided what your values are and you communicate those, step 3, when you start really thinking about what are the things that I need to do differently, what are the things that I want to do that are important to me in terms of my values, another step is to do what's called a scan of your environment. If these are the things that you want to do, be, or have in terms of the values that are important to you, then what is in your environment currently that is either going to be an obstacle in your way, that is either going to be the accelerator engine to get you going, or it could be just that issue that stops you dead in your tracks. It's like looking at a radar screen. If you were an air traffic controller and you see all the blips on the screen, it's paying attention to what's out there. Because if you start heading down the road, let me go back to this one. If you start heading down the road and you're not aware of what's going to be on that road ahead, what kind of weather's out there, what kind of construction's out there, if you haven't planned for those contingencies, you could miss that window of opportunity for success, or you could really be sidelined and miss the opportunity altogether. So doing an environmental scan is a part of planning, looking ahead, getting out of the trenches and looking ahead. And one of the things that is part of the packet that you'll get in your email from me is what's called a context map. And I've got one over here on the wall. And what this is to identify for yourself what are the factors that are in that road ahead. What are some of the things that are happening in my industry? What are some of the things that are happening in our business community? Right now on the way in, we're in an oil and gas town, right? H-Town is all oil and gas. Well, not all. We say we're not, but we're 90% oil and gas, right? Anybody listen to NPR this morning? National Public Radio had a huge presentation this morning on fracking. Now, fracking in the oil and gas industry is a big deal. We've got the is it Bartlesville? Thank you. What is it? Barnett, thank you. Barnett. We've got Eagle Ford, and it is going gangbusters. As they say, and as Mike said this morning, game changers in the industry. But there's a lot of other concerns that are coming out now with fracking, right? Not so much fracking if it's done right, but fracking if it's done incorrectly. Right. So when we start looking at some of the areas of uncertainty over here, is what is it in terms of health concerns? What is it in terms of environmental concerns? So these are things we need to be aware of. What's the price of natural gas? What's the price of natural gas? What's happening with the number of oil rigs? Is it going up or is it going down? So these are things we need to be aware of because it affects our business. And whether you're in the oil and gas industry or not, you're in H-Town. That sounds kind of bad. H-Town sounds like I'm cussing, right? It's Houston. And all of that affects us. So looking at what's happening in our industry, what are some of the unknowns, what are the things we need to be prepared for? These are the things we need to be looking at. These are the blips on the screen. And we can be like ostriches and put our head in the sand and pretend, oh, it doesn't really affect me. Everything affects you. And if you're not prepared, you could easily be gone tomorrow. So what do? Step number 4. Once you've gone through this exercise and you've identified what are the trends, what are the things that are happening currently, how is this affecting my customers, what will I need to do differently in my business? The next thing is to create what's called a SPOT matrix, or in some strategic planning sessions, they call it a SWOT analysis. I don't like to focus on weakness. I don't really like the word problem either, but I kind of like problem better than weakness, because a problem means there's something I can do about it. So identifying what your strengths, what your problems, what your opportunities are, and what the threats are to your business. And once we can identify those areas from that analysis, then we can start looking at that and saying, okay, so from those areas that we've identified, these are things that my company has going well for it. These are some problems I really need to look at. These are challenges I need to think about. These are opportunities I could capitalize on. Identifying which are the ones I want to attack. Going through a prioritization and looking at what is important for me to capitalize on that SPOT matrix or that SWOT analysis. Now here's the next step, because you could have all kinds of things listed here, right? All these things that you want to do. But to keep yourself from doing everything, narrow it down, right? Narrow it down, chunk it down. Chunk it down in terms of all the roles and responsibilities that you have. These are the roles and responsibilities of the entrepreneur. They're also the departments or divisions within a large corporation. So when you start looking at the things that you want to do, chunk them down into the areas of functionality. And even from this list, chunk it down even further and identify not only the ones that are going to have, and I'd say get it down to 5. Get it down to 5 big steps that you'll take for this period of time, whether it's for a year, whether it's for 6 months. But if you can chunk it down to 5 big steps to concentrate on, rather than 400, you have a much greater chance of success. But it's not just looking at which ones are going to be the ones that will guarantee or really have a big impact on my success, but which ones bring me the greatest joy. Because if I don't like them, if I'm not passionate about it, I'm going to be going through the motions. And we're right back where we were when we started. So what are the 5 things that are going to have the greatest impact on my success? And what are the things that are going to bring me the greatest joy? Because if I'm not happy, nobody else is going to want to do business with me either. True? Think about the places you do business with. If you had a choice between going to, I always use this dry cleaners. This dry cleaners, there were 2 in the Kingwood area. One knew my name and said hello to me every single time I came in. Didn't have to ask, they would go get my clothes and bring them to me. It was awesome. And then another one, I had been going there just as long, acted like they never knew me, like they'd never seen me before, and barely said thank you. I knew that the other cleaner, her family owned the business. She had a little boy, and the little boy was having some issues. I knew a lot about her family. Guess which one went out of business? Yeah. This is the one that I kept going back to. I only went to that one because it was like on the way home when I was really tired. It was kind of the have to. But given the choice of where I felt like at home, was over here. So looking at, if you look at that list, what's the one that I have on there that probably is a surprise to you? You hadn't thought about budgeting time
Self-care.
or projects. Which one?
The self-care.
Self-care. Is that on your list? If it's not, it needs to be, right? For all the reasons that we said earlier. If self-care is not on your list, all this other stuff isn't going to matter. You're not going to have the energy, you're not going to have the commitment, and it won't matter anyway, because if you're not enjoying it, nobody wants to hang around you. When you look at that bucket list, these are just the different, you'll have that as the instructions for how to create your bucket list. But I love the name bucket list, because when we talk about buckets, when we talk about bucket lists, what do you normally think about? All the things that you want to do before you die, right? These are all the things that we want you to do so your business doesn't die. The bucket list of the things that you want to do because they're fun, because you enjoy them, and because they're going to create success in your life and in your business. It's really looking at both ways of having success, personal and professional. And the last thing is that when you get those 5 big steps that you've identified, it's then figuring out what's your plan for making them happen. I'm a firm believer that if you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. It's just a wish. So you need to have the time, you need to have the task identified that you're going to be doing, and what are the resources that you need. But the most important one there is time. If you don't schedule it, it won't happen. And I promise you, if you don't schedule your self-care, it will not happen. If you don't schedule your plan, time to plan, it will not happen. Do you believe me? Absolutely. Schedule it or it won't. So this is another tool that you'll have in your email. It's a roadmap for actually planning out the task, identifying the resources that you need, and identifying what are some of the goals associated with whatever that project was, the 5 big steps. Does it take time? And several men in this room I know who do plan. So one of the things that I encourage you to do is to find out from them. Network while you're here. Talk to people. One of the biggest things about networking is people don't know what to ask. All right? Here's a great question to ask tonight at the networking reception. Tell me, do you take time out of your schedule and really plan your business? How does that work for you? And what have you discovered if you don't do that? It's a great way to get people to start thinking about, do I plan? And can I share it with someone? Everybody here is so supportive. They really want to see everybody successful. So find out, what are those keys to success? I will tell you, asking people who are in business like you're in at this conference today is one of the best ways to get the answer to that question, to find out, is it worth my time? Is it worth my time to invest in myself and to invest in my business? And one of the other things that I can tell you is that in this room, I want to introduce to you the Women's Leadership Advisory Board. Raise your hand if you're here. All right, thank you. These ladies do plan. In fact, as part of their membership, as part of their requirement to be on this board, I take them away, literally take them away. They have to schedule time out of their business to work on their business plan. But I did it in a very fun way. I'm all about blending fun with work, and we took a cruise. They could not leave, right? 7-day cruise, 3 days, doing nothing but strategic planning. And it was a gorgeous ship. And Debbie's sitting over here saying, I can't believe we're doing this. We're on a cruise ship. It's gorgeous. And we're sitting here in the boardroom doing strategic planning. And we did it for 3 days. And then we took 3 days and we went and did all the fun stuff, right? Which was go to, where'd we go? Roatan and Belize and Honduras. We had a great time. But we worked before and after. And one of the things that we determined is that in this group, by taking time out, because really we had to schedule this way in advance, and they got there, and they worked, and created their bucket list, and created their plans, and got their 5 steps, and figured out what was going to happen for the year. And now it's almost June, mid-year, and we're going to find out just how successful they were. We're taking another weekend away for rest and rejuvenation, and we're going to find out just where their year is now. Of course, we already know, because we meet on a monthly basis, and we know that they're going gangbusters. And looking at what they've achieved is phenomenal. And they can tell you how important it is to take time out, but you have to schedule it, because if you don't, it's not going to happen. It's absolutely not going to happen. I want to thank you for letting me walk you through what I feel like is one of the most important gifts that I can give to anyone in the business community, and that is the gift of time. Time for yourself. Do not let it slip by. Time is too short. We do way too much already. Take the time to spend on you so that you can give back so much to other people who need your products, who need your services, who need you. But if you're not taking care of you, there's nothing left over. So I'd like to ask you if there are questions that I can answer for you before we adjourn and have a drink at the reception. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much. Please come by and see us in booth 805. See us tonight at the reception. And I'm so glad that you stuck around today and you learned how to take time for yourself and the difference that it can make for you, your family, your community, and the world. Don't let the gift go undiscovered. Thank you so much.
Please don't forget about your feedback forms, please. Can't leave the room without it.
You'll send the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh,
Thank
yes,
you.
if you'll give your business card to Kara, then we'll get you the templates and the PowerPoint presentation.